My son stood in my kitchen while two strangers carried my late husband's dresser out the front door. When I tried to stop them, he raised a folded paper and said, "It's my house now, Mom. You're trespassing." 3 months earlier, I still believed the worst thing that could happen to an old woman was running out of money. I was 68, living alone in a small brick house outside Pittsburgh that my husband Walter and I had bought in 1991. It was not a beautiful house. The porch leaned a little to the left. The upstairs bathroom had a faucet that whistled when the water got hot. In winter, the windows in the dining room let in enough cold air that I kept an old towel rolled along the sill, but it was ours. Walter had repaired almost everything in that house with his own hands. He built the shelves in the basement. He planted the maple tree by the driveway. He painted our son Michael's room blue when Michael was 7 because our boy wanted to sleep under the ocean. Walter died 2 years before this story began. After that, the house changed. The refrigerator sounded louder at night. The hallway seemed longer. I started leaving the television on even when I was not watching it, just so another human voice would fill the rooms. My Social Security check covered the mortgage, which was nearly paid off, property taxes, utilities, food, and very little else. I worked 3 mornings a week in the cafeteria at an elementary school in Monroeville. I wore orthopedic shoes, tied my gray hair behind my head, and served scrambled eggs, chicken nuggets, and little cartons of chocolate milk to children who never remembered my name. I did not mind. The work hurt my knees, but I liked being useful. At 5:15 every morning, I woke before the sun, made instant coffee, and stood by the kitchen window while the backyard was still black. In October, the damp Pennsylvania air crawled into my bones. My fingers would ache while I buttoned my coat. By the time I came home, I smelled like dish soap and fryer oil, and my lower back burned from bending over trays. Michael was 41. He lived in Columbus, Ohio, with his wife Jenna and their daughter, Sophie. He sold commercial flooring for a company that had been restructuring for what seemed like half his adult life. Some months he called and talked about commissions and new accounts. Other months, he said things were tight. He had always been charming when he needed something. As a boy, he could break a window with a baseball and somehow have me comforting him 10 minutes later. Walter saw through him better than I did. "He's a good kid," Walter used to say, "but don't confuse loving him with believing everything he says." I used to get angry when Walter said that. After Walter died, Michael called almost every night. At first, I thought grief had brought us closer. By November, Michael had started asking about the house, how much I owed, whether Walter had refinanced, what the taxes were. I answered because he was my son. There was less than $19,000 left on the mortgage, and the house was worth far more than we had paid for it. "Mom," he said once, "you're sitting on a gold mine." I told him, "I'm sitting in my kitchen." Then the furnace died during a cold snap. I could not afford the replacement. Michael drove in from Columbus and paid for it. "You're my mother," he said, when I protested. After that, letting him help with paperwork felt like family, not danger. Over the next month, Michael became involved in everything. He set up online access for my utility bills. He changed my auto pay dates so I would not get late fees. He helped me compare homeowners insurance. He noticed that my name was still not on one of Walter's old investment accounts and told me I needed to straighten out my paperwork. He was right about that. There were stacks of folders in Walter's desk that I had not touched since the funeral. Life insurance statements, tax records, the deed, the mortgage, a will from 2004 that named Michael as our only heir. Michael sat beside me at the dining table, sorting papers into neat piles. "You need a power of attorney," he said. I looked at him. "For what? In case something happens to you." "Something like what?" "Mom, don't make me say it." I knew what he meant. A stroke, a fall, dementia, a car accident. Things old people pretend happen to other old people. He showed me a document on his laptop. "It doesn't mean I own anything," he said. "It just means I can help if you're in the hospital or something." In December, I slipped on ice outside the school. I did not break anything, but I landed hard on my left hip. The school nurse called an ambulance because I could not stand without getting dizzy. Michael drove from Columbus while I was still in the emergency room. He arrived angry, not at me, at the world, at the school for not salting the walkway, at the hospital because it took too long to get an X-ray, at himself for living 3 hours away. When the doctor said I could go home, Michael refused to let me stay alone. He took me to his house in Columbus for 10 days. Sophie gave me her room and slept on an air mattress in her parents' room. She was 11, all elbows and long brown hair, with the habit of asking questions while you were still answering the previous one. Grandma, did people have YouTube when you were little? No. Did you have cell phones? No. Did you have color? I stared at her. She burst out laughing. That child could make a cemetery feel cheerful. On my 4th day in Columbus, Michael brought out the power of attorney papers again. I was sitting on their couch with an ice pack against my hip. Mom, this is exactly what I'm talking about, he said. You fall, you end up in the hospital. And what if you couldn't pay bills? I can pay my bills. This time, Jenna was in the kitchen. She did not say anything. Michael sat beside me. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect you. I read the first page, then the second. The print was small. My glasses were upstairs. I want to take this home. He exhaled. Why? To read it. You think I'm trying to steal from you? I looked at him. He looked hurt. That expression did what it had done since he was a little boy. It made me feel cruel. No. Then why are you acting like I'm some stranger? I'm not. He reached for a pen. Sign where the tabs are. I'll make you copies. I hesitated. Then Sophie came running into the room with a Christmas ornament she had made at school. Grandma, look. Supposed to be a cardinal, but it looks like a tomato with wings. We all laughed. The moment broke, and I signed. I signed because my hip hurt. I signed because my son had driven 3 hours to sit beside me in an emergency room. I signed because his daughter was hanging a tomato-shaped bird on the Christmas tree. I signed because I trusted the boy I had once rocked to sleep on my chest. I did not know that trust could be notarized and used against you. In January, I went home. Nothing seemed different for a while. Then small things began to happen. A bank statement did not arrive. My homeowner's insurance company called to confirm updated contact information. The mortgage company sent an email instead of a paper bill, though I never asked them to go paperless. Michael said it was all part of the cleanup he had done. Less junk mail, he told me. In March, Sophie called me from her own little phone. She whispered, Grandma, sweetheart, why are you whispering? Dad says I'm not supposed to ask you something. I sat up straighter. What? Are you selling your house? My hand went cold around the phone. No. Oh, why would you ask me that? I heard Dad talking to a man. He said something about your house and equity. My front door opened. I nearly screamed. It was only the wind pushing against the old latch. Sophie, where is your father? Downstairs. Does he know you called me? No, don't get yourself in trouble. I won't. Before hanging up, she said, Grandma? Yes? Dad's been really weird. Then the line went dead. I called Michael immediately. He did not answer. I called again. No answer. On the 3rd call, he texted, in a meeting. What's wrong? I typed, are you trying to sell my house? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then he called, where did you get that? Answer me. Of course I'm not selling your house. Sophie heard you talking about equity. His voice changed. Not much, but enough. Sophie listens at doors now. She's 11. She has no idea what she heard. Then tell me. He said he had spoken with a financial advisor about whether I could use a home equity line to pay off my remaining mortgage and credit card debt. I had never asked him to do that. He said he was only exploring options. I told him not to explore anything else. Understood, he said, too quickly. That night I slept badly. Around 4 a.m, I got up and pulled Walter's document box from the closet. The deed was gone. At first I thought I had misplaced it. I emptied every folder. Nothing. I searched the desk, the kitchen drawer, the bedroom closet. Nothing. At 6:30 I called Michael. He sounded half asleep. Do you have my deed? Silence. Then, probably. I took some documents to scan. Bring it back. Mom, it's just a piece of paper. The county has the official record. Bring it back. Okay. When? This weekend. He did not come that weekend. He said Sophie had a fever. He did not come the next weekend either. He said he had to travel for work. By then, something inside me had begun to wake up. Not courage exactly. Suspicion. At the cafeteria, one of the other women, Denise, noticed I was distracted. Denise was 72 and had worked at the school longer than some of the teachers had been alive. She had 4 sons, 2 ex-husbands, and no patience for nonsense. She watched me put a tray of clean forks into the refrigerator. Evelyn, I stared at the forks. Oh, you planning to chill the silverware? I told her enough of the story to make my hands shake. Not everything. Just the power of attorney, the missing deed, the bank transfer. Denise stopped wiping the counter. Call the county. For what? To see whose name is on your house. I laughed nervously. It's my house. I know what you think. That sentence scared me more than anything Michael had said. On my lunch break, I called the Allegheny County Real Estate Office. A young man helped me find the property record. He asked for my address. He paused. Then he said, "Ma'am, the most recent deed transfer was recorded 6 weeks ago." I did not understand him. Transfer to who? He read the name. Michael Thomas Parker. My son. For a moment, the cafeteria noise disappeared. I could see Denise across the room watching me. The young man on the phone kept talking. Something about a quitclaim deed. Something about consideration of $1. Something about a notarized signature. I said, "No, ma'am, I never gave my house to my son." He asked whether I wanted a copy of the recorded document. I said yes. My voice did not sound like mine. When I got home, I called Michael 17 times. He finally answered. Before he could speak, I shouted, "You stole my house." He went quiet. Then he said very softly, "No, I didn't. My name is gone. Mom, calm down. Do not tell me to calm down. You signed the transfer. I signed a power of attorney. You signed more than one paper." The room seemed to tilt. "No, yes. You told me those were all part of the same thing. They were part of estate planning. You put your name on my house. I protected the house." From who? From nursing homes, from creditors, from taxes, from everything you don't understand. I could hear my own breathing. Put it back. It doesn't work like that. It worked like that when you took it. Mom, put my house back in my name. He was silent long enough that I knew. There was something else. What did you do? Nothing. What did you do, Michael? He cursed under his breath. Then he said, "I used the house as collateral." My legs gave out. I sat on the kitchen floor. For what? My business. What business? The distribution thing I told you about. He had mentioned a side business months earlier. Something about importing commercial fixtures. I had barely listened. How much? It's complicated. How much? 80,000. I thought I had misheard. 80? I needed a bridge loan. It's temporary. You borrowed $80,000 against my house. It is going to be paid back. Put my house back. I can't until the loan is settled. I started crying, not loudly, just tears running down my face while I sat on the floor beside the cabinet where Walter used to keep dog treats for a dog that had been dead 9 years. Michael heard me. His voice softened. "Mom, listen to me. I did this for all of us." I hung up. 5 minutes later, he called back. I did not answer. Then Jenna called. I answered because I thought she might help me. She said, "Evelyn, Michael told me you're upset. Did you know?" A pause. Know what? That he put my house in his name. Another pause. Longer. He said you agreed. I closed my eyes. "Did you know about the loan?" "No." Her voice was different now. "What loan?" I told her. She stopped speaking. Then I heard her say, away from the phone, "Michael, what loan?" He shouted something I could not make out. The call ended. That was the first crack. By midnight, the whole family was breaking apart. That afternoon, I called a lawyer, not one of those downtown firms with polished websites and conference rooms and skyscrapers. I called a woman Denise knew from church named Ruth Feldman. Ruth practiced estate law out of a small office above a dentist. She had silver hair cut to her chin, red glasses, and a way of looking at paperwork as if it had personally offended her. I brought her every document I could find. She read in silence for nearly 40 minutes. Then she said, "This is bad." My stomach dropped. How bad? The deed has your notarized signature. I didn't know it was a deed. That matters, but proving fraud can be difficult. He lied to me. I believe you. My son stole my house. Ruth leaned back. Evelyn, I need you to hear the rest. There was always a rest now. The transfer had been recorded properly. Michael had then obtained a private loan using the property as security. The lender was not a bank Ruth recognized. The interest rate was ugly. The loan had short deadlines. And according to a document filed less than 2 weeks earlier, Michael was already behind on a required payment. What happens if he doesn't pay? They could move against the property. You mean they could take my house? Yes. I looked down at my hands. The skin around my knuckles was cracked from cafeteria soap. How long? I don't know yet. Days? Probably not days. Weeks? Possibly. I wanted a number. People always want a number when they are afraid. A date, a price, a percentage, something that makes fear look like arithmetic. Ruth would not give me one. Instead, she asked me to revoke the power of attorney immediately. We did. Then she told me to open new bank accounts, change every password, freeze my credit, and make a list of everything Michael had ever had access to. I spent the next 2 days doing exactly that. Every task revealed another little wound. Michael had changed the mailing address on one investment account. He had added his phone number as a recovery number to my email. He had requested a replacement copy of my Social Security card. He had even created an online account with the county tax office in my name. I kept thinking the same thing. When? When had he done all this? During the weekend, he fixed the gutters, at the hospital, at his dining table while Sophie made hot chocolate. Had he been planning it while he hugged me at Walter's grave? Ruth brought in a litigation lawyer, Carlos Mendez. He began checking the deed and the notary stamp. Before he could finish, Wednesday morning brought something worse. At 10:20 that morning, while I was serving pancakes to third graders, my phone vibrated in my apron. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Bell. I ignored it. She called again, then a third time. I stepped into the pantry. "Hello? Evelyn, you need to come home." "What happened?" "There's a moving truck in your driveway." My knees nearly folded. "What?" "2 men are carrying furniture out." I ripped off my apron. The principal drove me home herself. When we turned onto my street, I saw the truck, white box truck, back doors open. My dining chairs were inside. Walter's workbench was on the lawn. My grandmother's cedar chest was halfway down the front steps. Michael stood in the doorway. For one strange second, I thought I was looking at a nightmare someone had staged using pieces of my real life. I jumped out before the principal fully stopped the car. "What are you doing?" Michael came down 1 step. "Oh, Mom, please don't make a scene." "A scene?" One of the movers walked past us carrying a lamp. I grabbed the base. "Put that down." He froze. "Ma'am, we were hired." "Put it down." Michael took my wrist. Not hard, but he took it. I jerked away. "Don't touch me." Neighbors were coming outside now. Mrs. Bell stood on her porch with her phone raised. Michael lowered his voice. "You can't stay here. This is my home. The lender is coming after the property. You said you had 60 days. Things changed." "What things?" He looked away. That was when I saw a man in a tan coat walk out through my front door carrying a clipboard. "Who is that?" Michael said nothing. The man introduced himself as a real estate broker. I stared at Michael. "You're selling it?" "Mom, you're selling my house?" "We need to stop the loan from swallowing everything." "There is no we. The sale covers the debt. There'll be money left." "For who?" "For you." "Then why are my things in a truck?" "Because the house needs to be empty." I stepped around him and ran inside. That is when I saw 2 strangers carrying Walter's dresser down the hall. The sight of that dresser broke something in me. Walter had bought it used before we were married. One drawer stuck in humid weather. Inside the top drawer, behind a folded handkerchief, I still kept the watch he wore on our wedding day. "Stop!" The men froze. Michael came into the kitchen behind me. I turned on him. My son stood in my kitchen while two strangers carried my late husband's dresser out the front door. When I tried to stop them, he raised a folded paper and said, "It's my house now, Mom. You're trespassing." The words hit the room like a plate shattering. One mover set his end of the dresser down. The other man stared at Michael. I said, "Call the police." Michael's face flushed. "Don't do this." I pulled out my phone. He reached for it. Mrs. Bell shouted from the doorway, "I'm already calling." That saved me. Michael stepped back. The broker left immediately. The movers refused to touch anything else. By the time police arrived, half my living room was on the lawn. The same phrase came up again. Civil dispute. But this time there were witnesses. This time Michael had entered the house after I had clearly told him not to. This time he had removed my possessions. The officers could not decide ownership of the house on the curb, but they told the movers to leave the personal property where it was until the dispute could be sorted out. Then rain started. Of course it did. Cold March rain. My sofa cushions were on the porch. Boxes of photographs sat near the driveway. Walter's workbench darkened as water soaked into the wood. Mrs. Bell, the principal, and two other neighbors helped me carry everything back inside. Michael stood beside his truck. He looked furious, not ashamed, furious. As I carried a box of Christmas decorations past him, he said, "You are going to lose everything because you won't listen." I stopped. "No, Michael." He stared at me. I already lost what mattered. His face changed, just for a second. Then he climbed into his truck and drove away. That night I opened Walter's dresser. The watch was still there, but something else was missing. A small fireproof envelope. Inside that envelope had been Walter's original will, our marriage certificate, and several old savings bonds. I searched every drawer. Nothing. Then I remembered Michael sorting papers months before. My stomach sank. I called Carlos. He told me to write down exactly what was missing. The next morning he called back. "Evelyn, I need you to come in." When I arrived, Ruth was there too. Carlos had spoken to the notary, Karen Baxter. "She says you appeared in front of her." He told me. "I did not." "She says you did." "She's lying." "Maybe." He turned his laptop toward me. On the screen was a copy of the notary journal entry. My name, a date, a signature, my driver's license number, and beside it a note saying identification verified in person. I stared. That's not my signature. It looked like mine, but it was not. The E leaned too far back. Walter used to tease me that my capital E looked like 3 shelves. This one did not. Carlo zoomed in. "We'll get an expert if we need one." Ruth pointed to the date. "Where were you on January 18th, I thought. January 18th? A Thursday. I was at work. Can you prove it?" I laughed once. "I clock in." The school had records. Better than that, the cafeteria had a camera at the employee entrance. The district retained footage for 90 days. We were at day 67. Carlos stood up so quickly his chair rolled backward. "Call the school now." The footage showed me entering at 6:12 a.m. It showed me leaving at 1:47 p.m. Karen's journal claimed I had appeared before her in Columbus at 11:30 that morning, 3 hours away. Carlos smiled for the first time. "That," he said, "is a problem for them." But Michael still had one more thing to do to me. 2 days later, Sophie disappeared. Jenna called me at 7:06 on a Saturday morning. She was screaming. "Is she with you?" I sat straight up in bed. "Who?" "Sophie." "Is Sophie there?" "No. She's gone." Jenna had woken and found Sophie's bed empty. Her backpack was missing. So was her winter coat. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Michael said he had no idea where she was. Police were called. For 3 hours, nobody knew anything. Then Mrs. Bell knocked on my door. She looked pale. "There's a girl behind your shed." I ran outside in slippers. Sophie was sitting on an overturned flower pot, hugging her knees. Her cheeks were red from the cold. I grabbed her. "What are you doing here?" She started sobbing. "I took a bus." "From Columbus?" She shook her head. "Dad drove me to Pittsburgh last night." I pulled back. What? She wiped her nose with her sleeve. He said we were staying at a hotel. He went out. I heard him talking on the phone before he left. About what? She looked toward the house. About you. My skin prickled. What did he say? She swallowed. He said if Grandma signs the paper Monday, everything goes away. I stared at her. What paper? I don't know. He brought you here? He said Mom needed space. Where is he now? I don't know. She reached into her backpack. I took this. She handed me a black flash drive. My first thought was that it was a toy. Then she said, it was in Dad's laptop. I did not touch it. Why did you take it? Because he keeps deleting things. I called Jenna, then the police, then Carlos. By noon, Sophie was back with her mother. Michael was nowhere to be found. The flash drive went to Carlos without ever being plugged into my computer. I expected it to contain business files, maybe copies of loan documents. What it contained was much worse. Michael had backed up his phone to his laptop. The drive held messages, hundreds of them, messages between Michael and a man named Trent Holloway, his so-called business partner, messages about my house, about the loan, about the deed. One from December said, need her signature while she's here. She won't read if I keep it simple. Another said, POA first, deed after. Karen can handle notarization. And one from January made me put both hands over my mouth. Once County posts it, she won't know unless somebody tells her. There were also messages about selling the house, not to save it, not to protect me, to take what remained after the lender was paid. Trent wrote, after payoff, you should still clear 130 to 150, enough to reset. Michael answered, I need at least 100. Mom can rent something. She doesn't need a whole house alone. I read that sentence 3 times. Mom can rent something. 32 years of mortgage payments. Christmas mornings. Walter's last breath in the upstairs bedroom. Michael's height marked in pencil inside the pantry door. A whole life. He had reduced it to something I did not need. Carlos would not let me read more that day. He said there were messages that might support fraud charges. I asked if Michael would go to jail. He said, that is not up to me. I thought I would feel relief. Instead, I felt tired. So tired I wanted to lie down on the carpet. Then Carlos said there was another problem. The lender. Even if Michael committed fraud, the lender could claim it had acted in good faith. If so, untangling the lien could take time. And if the house is sold first, we're filing to stop that. Can you? We can ask the court. Ask. Another word I hated. We filed for an emergency injunction. The hearing was set for Monday. Sunday night, at 11:48, someone threw a brick through my dining room window. I was upstairs. The crash was so loud I thought the furnace had exploded. Glass covered the floor. The brick had a piece of paper wrapped around it with duct tape. 3 words were written in black marker. Drop the case. I did not touch it. Police came. They photographed everything. I stayed that night at Mrs. Bell's house. At 3 a.m, lying awake on her floral couch, I wondered whether Michael had thrown the brick. The thought made me nauseous. I kept remembering him at 6 years old, terrified during a thunderstorm, crawling into my bed. I remembered his little hand around my finger. Then I remembered the message. Mom can rent something. By sunrise, grief had changed shape. I was no longer grieving Walter. I was grieving a living person. Monday's hearing lasted less than an hour. Michael appeared with an attorney. He wore a navy suit I had bought him for Walter's funeral. He would not look at me. His lawyer argued that I had voluntarily transferred the property as part of estate planning, and later regretted it after a family disagreement. Carlos presented the school time records, and the video showing I was in Pennsylvania when the notary claimed I had appeared in Ohio. The judge's expression changed. Then Carlos presented several of the messages recovered from the flash drive. Michael's lawyer asked for a recess. The judge granted a temporary order blocking any sale or further transfer. I should have felt safe. Instead, when I left the courthouse, 2 men were standing beside Michael near the parking garage. One was Trent Holloway. I knew him from a photograph. The other, I did not know. Trent leaned close to Michael and said something. Michael shoved him. Hard. Trent shoved back. Their lawyers rushed between them. Then Michael saw me. He looked terrified. Not angry. Terrified. He broke away and walked straight toward me. Carlos stepped in front of me. Michael stopped. "Mom." I said nothing. "Mom, please." Carlos said, "Do not speak to my client." Michael's eyes filled. "There are things you don't understand." I almost laughed. That had become his favorite sentence. Then he said, "Trent has been using my name." Carlos stiffened. "What does that mean?" Michael looked over his shoulder. Trent was watching us. Michael lowered his voice. "The loan is bigger than she knows." My mouth went dry. "How much?" He looked at me. 210,000. I felt the parking garage move under my feet. Carlos said, "You told her 80. That was the first loan. There were others?" Michael nodded. "How?" Michael swallowed. "Against the house. Against my receivables. Against things that don't exist." "What things?" "Inventory." Carlos stared at him. "You fabricated collateral?" Michael looked sick. "I signed things." "With Trent?" "Yes." "Who threw the brick?" Michael flinched. I saw the answer before he spoke. "Not me." "Who?" "I don't know." "Michael, I swear to God, Mom, I don't know." Trent called from across the garage. "Mike!" Michael turned. Then he looked back at me and whispered, "Don't go home alone." That was all. He walked away. Then, on Thursday, his truck was found at Pittsburgh International Airport. No one knew where he was. Jenna called me crying. Again. He took cash. "How much?" "Everything in our checking account. 9,000. Did he leave a note?" "No." "His passport?" "Gone. For a few hours we thought he had run. Then Sophie remembered something. Dad doesn't keep his passport at home." Jenna frowned. "Yes, he does." "No. I saw it in Grandma's dresser." Everyone looked at me. "My dresser?" "Grandpa's dresser," Sophie said. "When Dad was moving stuff." My skin went cold. We went back to the house with a police officer. The dresser was where we had left it. I opened the top drawer. Walter's watch. Handkerchief. Old cufflinks. Sophie pointed underneath the drawer. There. The bottom panel was loose. The officer lifted it. Inside was the missing fireproof envelope and Michael's passport. He had hidden both. There was also a second phone. A cheap prepaid phone. Police took it. That night, Michael was arrested at a motel near Youngstown. He had not been fleeing the country. He had been hiding from Trent. The second phone contained threatening messages, not vague ones, specific ones. Money, deadlines, my address. The brick had come from one of Trent's associates. That was the first thing Michael had told me in months that turned out to be true. The second was worse. Trent had never expected the house to be sold through a normal real estate listing. He had a buyer lined up, a shell company connected to his cousin. The plan was to sell quickly, satisfy part of the debt, strip the remaining equity, and bury the rest of the money through the fake distribution business. Michael had agreed, at least at first. Then he panicked when the numbers grew. He tried to back out. Trent threatened him. So Michael did what frightened, selfish people often do. He did not come clean. He pushed the danger towards someone weaker, me. He tried to move me out, sell the house, and make the problem disappear before I understood it. The criminal investigation widened. Karen Baxter, the notary, changed her story when investigators showed her the school video. She admitted I had never appeared before her. She said Michael brought the signed papers to her. Then she said the deed had already been signed when she saw it. Then after being shown the messages, she admitted something else. My signature had been traced, not by Michael, by Trent. That surprised me. For weeks I had imagined my son sitting at a table, carefully copying my name. Instead, he had simply handed a stranger enough of my documents to do it for him. Somehow, that felt even colder. Michael's attorney began discussing a plea agreement. I did not attend those meetings. I had one goal, my house. The lender fought us. Their lawyers said they had relied on a recorded deed and notarized documents. They said they were victims too. Carlos did not disagree. He just argued I should not lose my home because criminals had fooled both of us. Weeks passed. April became May. I went back to work. The children asked why I had been gone. I told them family trouble. One little boy nodded seriously and said, "My brother ate my Pop-Tart." I told him I understood. Some days that was the only time I laughed. Jenna filed for divorce. Sophie started therapy. Michael remained in jail because the judge considered him a flight risk after the motel incident. I did not visit him. He wrote me 3 letters. I did not open them. Then a 4th came. I almost threw it away. Instead, I put it in Walter's dresser. A week later, Sophie came to stay with me for the weekend. She saw the envelope. "You're not going to read it?" "No." "Why?" "Because I don't know what he can say that changes anything." She nodded. Then she said, "He's still my dad." There was no accusation in her voice. That made it hurt more. After she went to sleep, I opened the letter. Michael did not ask me to forgive him. That was the first surprise. He wrote that the furnace payment had been real. He had paid for it before any of the schemes started. He wrote that after that he began thinking about the equity in my house. At first he told himself he would borrow against it and pay everything back before I noticed. Then Trent showed him how much money they could access. Then one lie needed another. Then the business failed before it ever truly existed. He wrote, "I kept telling myself I was borrowing from my future because the house would be mine someday. I know what that sounds like. I know what it is." He admitted calling my school. He admitted trying to make me seem confused. He admitted arranging the movers. He wrote that when he held up the deed and called me a trespasser, he saw Walter's face in his mind. Then he wrote one sentence that made me stop reading. Dad was right about me. I folded the letter. I did not cry. By June, Carlos called with news. The lender had agreed to a settlement. Because of the forged notarization, the evidence of conspiracy, and problems in their own underwriting, they would release the lien in exchange for a claim against assets seized from Trent and Michael's business accounts. I would keep the house, but we still needed the court to void the deed. The hearing was scheduled for June 23rd. I wore a navy dress Walter liked. I had not worn it since his funeral. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Michael was brought in wearing county-issued clothes. He looked thinner, older. When he saw me, he looked down. The judge reviewed the evidence, the forged signature, the false notarization, the messages, the school video, the financial records, the lender's settlement. Then the judge declared the deed void. Just like that, months of fear ended in a sentence that took seconds. Title restored to Evelyn Parker. I stared at the judge. Carlos touched my arm. "It's done," I whispered. "Say it again." He smiled. "The house is yours." Outside the courtroom, a deputy brought Michael past me. He whispered that he was sorry. I asked him one question. "Why did you take Walter's will?" Michael closed his eyes, then opened them. "Because I thought if you changed it, Sophie would get the house instead of me." I stared at him. "That's all?" He nodded. That answer hurt more than a clever answer would have. There was no grand reason, no desperate secret, no sacrifice, just greed, fear, and entitlement tied together until they looked like a plan. The deputy led him away. I watched until the door closed. When I came home, Mrs. Bell had taped a sheet of notebook paper to my front door. "Welcome home, Evelyn. This means you." A few weeks later, Jenna and Sophie came for breakfast. The doorbell rang while the coffee was brewing. A county envelope waited on the porch. Inside was the corrected deed. My name was there, only my name. Sophie leaned over my shoulder. "That means it's yours again?" "Yes." She smiled and ran upstairs. A moment later, the old bathroom faucet began to whistle. "Grandma," Sophie shouted. "Your house is making that weird noise again." I set the deed beside Walter's watch and headed for the stairs. "I know, sweetheart," I called back. "I'm coming."